Hello everyone, I am Evelyn and welcome to my channel Eve's Reading Quest. So in this video I wanted to point out the plot holes in An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So you can expect there to be a lot of spoilers here. I did do a spoiler-free book review on this book. I will put the link down in the description so you can go watch that video if you want to. Unfortunately, the audio for that video is really bad. Hopefully, the audio for this video is slightly better. So, in my spoiler-free book review, I mentioned that the author introduced various ideas in this book and she never really got around to explaining them. So those are the things, or rather those are the concept and plot holes that I will be explaining in this video. Okay, so I'm doing this video assuming that you have read this book and know its story. Let's get into the plot holes in An Enchantment of Ravens. The first plot hole I want to point out is Isabel's craft. So at one point in their journey, Isabel and Rook decide that they're going to go to the spring court. But before they can go there, they need to come up with a cover story as to why they're there. And Isabel comes up with this idea that she's gonna tell the fair folks at the spring court that she discovered a new craft. This new craft is basically she can paint emotions onto her portraits. Now remember, fair folks cannot feel emotions. But once Isabel gets to the spring court and she starts painting the portraits, every time a fair folk looked at his or her portrait, they react in an unusual manner. That is, some of them display human-like emotions. This kind of starts scaring Rook to a point where he actually tells Isabel that maybe they should leave the spring court before someone actually starts noticing that her portraits are doing something to the fair folks at the spring court. But that's all we get. This is not explained any more than that. Yeah, Isabel's painting is doing something to the fair folks at the spring court, but we never really find out whether she has some kind of unusual powers or something like that. Does her portraits have some kind of magical element to it or something like that? What was the whole issue with her portraits and her being able to ignite emotions in the fair folks? That's never really explained, and I personally found that to be kind of upsetting because I thought that Isabel, being the main character, would have some kind of magical powers or her portraits are special. I mean, clearly her portraits did do something to the fair folks there, but it's not explained. What was that? What's up with the portraits and the fair folks' reaction? Was it Isabel's own power or was it just her craft? So that's not explained. The author doesn't say anything about that in this book. It's kind of just left to interpretation, I guess, which is kind of unfortunate because I really thought she would explain it. The next plot hole I want to talk about is Rook's character. As I just mentioned, fair folks are not supposed to feel emotions. And then there is Rook, who is a fair folk who is in love. So if Rook is a fair folk and fair folks are not supposed to feel emotion, why can't Rook feel emotions? Like, he clearly can. He can feel, definitely can feel emotions. Like, he falls in love with Isabel, for example. He portrays other kind of emotions too, like anger, sorrow, and various other emotions. So this is something that's not explained in the book. Now, I would be okay if Isabel was the first woman he fell in love with. Then I could just explain it as like, yeah, maybe Isabel does have some kind of power and that's why she was able to kind of bring that out of Rook and that's why he fell in love with her. But unfortunately, Isabel is not the first person he fell in love with. He has fallen in love with another human girl. So it's not Isabel that made him feel emotion. So why is Rook special? Why can't he feel emotion? Other fair folks clearly can't feel emotions. They are all like just empty. They pretend they can feel emotion, but In the end, Isabel can clearly tell that they cannot feel emotions. They're not like Rook. Rook is different. Why is he different? Is it because he's a prince? No! Gadfly is a prince and he cannot feel emotions. So why is Rook special? This is something that's not explained and I find it upsetting, and I want to know why Rook can feel emotion. Which brings me to the next plot hole. Why is there a law called the good law when the fair folks cannot even feel emotion? Seriously, there's literally no reason for there to be a law called the good law. Okay, fine, there's a law stating that a human and a fair folk cannot fall in love. But there is so much detail put into this law that it's ridiculous. Like, clearly, fair folks cannot feel love because there's one point in the book towards the end, all the fair folks basically tells Isabel to drink from the green well so that she will become a fair folk and she can live happily with Rook. But then everyone starts laughing and mocking them because everyone knows that once you become a fair folk, you cannot feel emotions, thereby she won't love Rook anymore. So it's crystal clear that fair folks cannot love. So why the hell is there a law called the good law? It's totally unnecessary. There's no need for that law. And it's even more weird because there's so much importance given to this law. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, this is not really a plot hole, but I just had to point this out. So there you go. The good law in this book is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense as far as the fair folks and their habits and mannerism are concerned. Another plot hole in this book is the world beyond. So this is a concept that the author introduces in the beginning of the book. So the world beyond is described as being a bad place at first. So Isabel basically says that there's worse things than being bored, like one could live in the world beyond. So automatically I thought that the world beyond is a terrible place to live. But then a few chapters or pages later, Isabel says that her aunt Emma would be better off living in the world beyond because her craft is more appreciated there. So is the world beyond a good place or a bad place? Also, the world beyond is mentioned at the end of the book. So when Isabel talked about the world beyond, she says that the world beyond has all 4 seasons. Like, the seasons keep changing in the world beyond, unlike Whimsy where there's only 1 season. So I thought the world beyond is a place where only humans live. There are no fair folks there. But at the end of the book, when the Alder King is chasing Rook and Isabel, Rook suggests this idea where he says that maybe they should go to the world beyond. So I was kind of confused, like, so maybe fair folks do live in the world beyond. But this whole concept of the world beyond is really confusing. Like, is it a good place? Is it a bad place? What's up with that place? And I just feel the author should have given the readers more about the world beyond. It's left open-ended, like we're just left to kind of come up with ideas about the world beyond on our own, which is kind of ridiculous. And finally, I don't know, this is not really a plot hole, but like I need to address this. So our dear Isabel at the end becomes the queen of the fair folks. I have so many questions about that. Like, is that allowed? Like, can a human be the queen of the fair folks? I feel like there should be a rule against that. But apparently there isn't. She easily becomes the queen of the fair folks. Rook automatically, as her husband, becomes the king of the fair folks. Also, as far as Rook is concerned, she's about to die in a few minutes because I think like 1 minute for a fair folk is like 1 year for a human. So technically she'll be dead in a few days from Rook's perspective. That's really bittersweet. I also want to ask this question: what was Gadfly's endgame? Like, what did he want to achieve? Like, he played the villain at one point, but in the end he turned out to be the good guy. Did he just want the Alder King dead? Maybe that's what he wanted. But in the end, we do not really know what Gadfly really wanted. Like, I feel like, I mean, obviously he knew that Isabel was gonna be the queen of the fair folks eventually. He can see the future and he knew this was gonna happen. And he also knew the Alder King would be killed by Isabel, and that's how she was gonna be the queen. But I feel like that's really like, did he really hate the Alder King so much so that he would let a human become the queen of the fair folks? Like, I don't know, man. Like, that sounds pretty, I don't know. I just find Gadfly's endgame to be really confusing, and I feel like that should have been explained in more detail. I mean, in the end, Gadfly's intentions are left open for interpretation. Like, we do not know what he wanted. Seems like he just wanted the Alder King dead and a human to become the queen of the fair folks. And I guess Brooke to become the king of the fair folks. Gadfly's endgame is something I really find confusing and I want to know more about. So these are some of the plot holes I found in this book. So this is just my own opinion. If you guys have stuff that you liked or disliked about this book, or if you have explanations for some of the plot holes I mentioned in this video, please put them down in the comment section. I also want to mention, I do not hate this book. I actually really like this book. This video may have seemed harsh on this book because this video focused on finding the plot holes in An Enchantment of Ravens. Don't get me wrong, I seriously do like this book, and if you watch my book review video on this book, you will know that I absolutely love this book. It's actually a really good book. Since there were so many plot holes in this book, I thought I should mention them. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a nice day.